Will you play the role of my boyfriend for just 24 hours? That was the desperate plea a terrified stranger made to a lonely father. His answer turned their lives upside down. Just a quick pause. Drop a comment letting us know which corner of the globe you're watching from. We absolutely cherish connecting with our international family. Wyatt Freeman lay on the cold concrete floor slid deep beneath the chassis of an old sedan. It was 3:30 on a dreary November Friday. His knuckles were smeared with oil, and he was wrestling with a stubborn bolt when the brass bell above the entrance jingled. Assuming it was the tardy delivery driver dropping off brake pads, he didn't budge. That is, until a trembling female voice called out, "Hello, is the owner around?" The panic in her voice was unmistakable. She sounded like she was on the verge of a breakdown nausea, or a combination of the two. Wyatt kicked himself out from under the vehicle, scrubbing his palms against a shop rag that was already stained black. He stood up to see a petite figure wearing the green vest of the local grocery store stranded in the center of the garage bay. She was gripping her keys with a force that drained the blood from her hands. It clicked. She was the friendly checkout girl who usually had a bright grin for him whenever he bought milk and bread. However, that smile was gone, replaced by the look of someone watching their life crumble. "Everything all right, Miss Engine acting up?" Wyatt kept his tone steady and soothing, the same way he spoke to drivers freaking out over a smoking radiator. Instead of answering, she began marching back and forth, muttering frantically as if debating with an invisible opponent. "This is madness. I can't do this. I cannot just ambush a guy like this. It's totally unhinged. I need to just walk away." Wyatt remained rooted to the spot, gripping his socket wrench, utterly baffled by the scene unfolding in his workspace. "Hey, Miss, you. Safe? Do I need to call the police or a doctor?" He probed gently. She froze, spinning to face him. Her dark eyes were wide with terror as she fired off the strangest request Wyatt had encountered in his 3.5 decades of life. "Will you please pose as my date for one afternoon?" The sentence rushed out in a single breath. Wyatt blinked, convinced his ears were playing tricks on him. Surely a random lady hadn't just strolled into a mechanic shop to solicit a fake romance. Yet there she stood, gazing at him with intense expectation. He looked down at the tool in his hand as if the cold steel could somehow decode what was happening. "Excuse me, come again?" Wyatt stammered. The dam broke. She inhaled sharply and launched into a rapid-fire explanation. She introduced herself as Isa Chen, the grocery clerk, and revealed that her manager, Mrs. Duncan, had spun a tale to the head office 8 months back. To protect Isa from layoffs, the manager had invented a fictional fiancé to make her appear more grounded and reliable. Isa had just nodded along, assuming the lie would fade away. But now the regional directors were visiting tomorrow for the annual Family Appreciation Picnic. They expected to meet everyone's partners, including Isa's non-existent husband-to-be. To make matters worse, Mrs. Duncan had casually suggested, "Just grab a handsome friend to play the part. No big deal." As if men were something you just picked off a shelf. "If I go solo, I'm toast," Isa confessed. "They'll brand me a liar. My manager will lose face with the executives, and I will absolutely receive my termination notice. I cannot afford to be unemployed. My parents rely on my paycheck to cover my father's heart medication." By the end of her speech, Isa was hyperventilating, her chest heaving. Wyatt struggled to process the deluge of information. She was essentially asking a total stranger to participate in corporate fraud. "Okay, but why pick me? We've never even had a real conversation," he reasoned. Isa let out a short, hollow laugh. "Because you are the only unattached man in this zip code who isn't my cousin married or completely terrifying. I watch you with your little girl in the aisles, your patient kind, and you keep to yourself. Honestly, you look like a good man who might take pity on a drowning woman." Wyatt opened his mouth to respond. Before he could form a sentence, the office door banged open. His 7-year-old Nora burst into the garage, blonde hair flying, her superhero backpack thumping against her shoulders. "Daddy, I crushed my math sheet. I didn't even have to ask for hints," she beamed. Then her gaze landed on Isa. Her expression shifted from pride to pure unadulterated joy, like she'd just spotted Santa Claus. "Hi, are you the girlfriend?" "Finally, I've been begging him to get a date since forever." Wyatt turned the color of a stop sign. No, honey. This nice lady is just a customer. She needs some assistance." Nora ignored the correction. She marched up to Isa, placed her hands on her hips, and adopted a serious expression that looked comical on a second grader. "My daddy is the best helper in the world. He fixes everybody's cars even when they don't have enough money." He always tells me that being kind is the most important rule, so whatever you need, he's definitely going to do it." The absolute faith in her voice made Wyatt's heart swell, even as he wished he could explain that deceiving a corporation was slightly different than swapping out a transmission. Issa looked down at the child, then up at the father, fresh tears pooling in her eyes. "I can pay you. I've got $200 stashed away. It's all yours. I just need you to show up tomorrow afternoon for maybe 4 hours. We act like we're engaged, pick at some potato salad, and then we never have to speak again. Please, I am literally begging you." Every alarm bell in Wyatt's brain was ringing. He knew he should shut this down immediately. It was fraud, it was a lie, and it was a disaster waiting to happen. But then he really looked at her. He saw a woman who was absolutely terrified of her world falling apart. His thoughts drifted to his late wife, Claire. She always used to tease him, saying he had a marshmallow heart because he couldn't turn his back on anyone in trouble. Then he noticed Nora standing there watching him with those wide blue eyes. Carbon copies of her mother's, waiting to see if her dad was actually going to be the hero he always told her to be. "Keep your $200, Wyatt heard, his own voice betray him. Issa's head snapped up, pure hope flooding her face. "I'll do it. But, listen, if we're going to pull this off, we need a bulletproof story. If your boss is as sharp as you say she's going to sniff out a lie, we need answers that stick." The tension left Issa's body so fast she almost collapsed. Tears started streaming down her face right there in the middle of the garage. "Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much. I promise I'll make this painless." Wyatt was already running through a mental checklist, wondering how on earth he was going to explain to his mother that he was fake dating a stranger for a corporate mixer. They made a plan to meet at Wyatt's place that evening to script their imaginary romance. Nora immediately chimed in. "I'm coming to the party too. If you guys are supposed to be engaged, the kid has to be there. It makes it look real. Besides, I can tell everyone how madly in love you are." Issa let out a genuine laugh for the first time since walking in. She agreed meeting the fiancé's child would definitely sell the illusion. As Issa stood in the doorway to leave, she paused and looked back. "Why are you actually doing this? You don't know me from Adam." Wyatt leaned back against his workbench, wiping his hands on a rag, and gave her the truth. "Because I know exactly what it feels like to need a job and be scared to death of losing it. And because you were brave enough to ask for help when you were drowning. Most people are too proud to scream for help, so they sink. You're fighting. I respect that." Issa stared at him like he had just recited ancient philosophy instead of showing basic human decency. After her car disappeared, Nora sidled up to him. "Dad, she's really pretty, and she seems nice. Can she be your girlfriend for real after tomorrow?" Wyatt ruffled her hair with a sigh. "Life doesn't work that way, honey." Nora just grinned. "Well, it should." That night, Issa knocked on Wyatt's door at 7 sharp. They sat at the kitchen table with notebooks, studying like students cramming for the world's most bizarre final exam, trying to construct a relationship history that wouldn't crumble under the interrogation of nosy coworkers. The story: they met in the produce aisle at the supermarket. He helped her with the apples. He asked for her number. Duration: they had been dating for 8 months. That fit perfectly with Mrs. Duncan's timeline. They hit a wall on the proposal story until Nora, who was supposed to be asleep, yelled from the stairs, "Make it romantic, like when Superman saves Lois Lane and they just know they're meant to be." Both adults burst out laughing. By 9 o'clock, after memorizing favorite colors and pizza toppings, the conversation shifted. Issa opened up about working full-time through community college to pay for her dad's heart medication. Wyatt found himself sharing his own story growing up in the foster system, meeting Claire at 23 and how she saw potential in him when nobody else did. They had Nora when he was 28. Then the illness took Claire when Nora was only 3. He had been navigating the single dad life for 4 years now. "So you've been raising her all by yourself this whole time?" Issa asked softly. Wyatt nodded. "Yeah, hardest thing I've ever done, but Nora, she's the best thing in my life. She keeps me going even on the days I don't want to get out of bed." Issa reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "She is so lucky to have you." Wyatt felt a lump form in his throat. "No, I'm the lucky one. And honestly, I'm lucky you walked into my shop today even if this whole plan is insane." As Issa packed up around 9:30, she smiled. "See you tomorrow, fake fiancé." Wyatt smiled back. "See you tomorrow. We've got this, Issa. Promise." The taillights faded and Nora appeared at the top of the stairs in her princess pajamas. "Dad, I really like her. She's sweet and pretty, and she laughs at your jokes even when they aren't funny. Can she please be your real girlfriend when this is over? Wyatt scooped his daughter up and carried her back to bed. Then Nora whispered something that stopped his heart cold. Mom would like her, I can tell. You always told me Mom said we should help people and be happy. Plus, she needs a hand and she makes me smile. Mom would have loved her. Wyatt had to blink away the sudden burn in his eyes. His little girl rarely spoke of Claire, and when she did, it always knocked the wind out of him. He tucked the duvet around her shoulders as she whispered, Happy tears are allowed, Dad. It was terrifying how easily she read his heart. The door clicked shut, leaving him alone in the corridor with the heavy realization that tomorrow meant 4 hours of playing pretend followed by a cold return to reality. So why did the thought of walking away from Ela leave a hollow, tightening ache in his chest? Maybe his daughter was onto something. Maybe Claire really would approve. The thought felt like a blessing he hadn't realized he was starving for. Saturday arrived with the sun. Wyatt pulled up to Isla's curb in his freshly detailed truck at exactly 10:30 in the morning. In the back, Nora was practically vibrating. She had donned her favorite purple frock, having declared over cereal that Cupid's assistant required formal wear. Isla slid into the passenger seat in a borrowed blue sundress, looking terrified enough to faint right there on the upholstery. Her lips moved in a silent rhythm, reciting their cover story like a prayer. Cramming for a final exam she couldn't fail. Supermarket meeting. You asked 3 times. I finally caved. 8 months together. I love blue because it matches your pickup. Wyatt reached across the console, capturing her hand instinctively. Hey, breathe. I've got you. We're going to breeze through this. The contact felt alarmingly natural for 2 strangers who had known each other for less than 18 hours. The Maplewood Fresh Mart lot had been transformed with balloons, folding tables, and a massive corporate banner screaming, Celebrating our family. At least 75 people were already milling about employees and their families scattered across the grass, picking at the buffet and tossing beanbags. He felt Isla's grip tighten as they approached the throng. That was when Mrs. Duncan zeroed in on them. She was exactly as advertised, 60-something, hair teased to the heavens, and a personality to match. Her face lit up like she had hit the jackpot. Oh my stars! Is this him, the fiancé? And who is this precious angel? The woman's volume was cranked to 11. Nora stepped up, hand extended, just like they had practiced. I'm Nora Freeman. Wyatt is my father. A pleasure to meet you, ma'am. I love your necklace. Mrs. Duncan clutched her chest, visibly swooning from the sheer cuteness. You kept this polite little lady a secret, and look at you. You are even more handsome in person. She launched into an interrogation before he could even offer a greeting. She demanded his resume, the origin story, and every gritty detail. He started with the rehearsed cereal aisle script, but then impulse took the wheel. Honestly, her smile just froze me in my tracks. I asked her out right there by the Cheerios. She shot me down cold, said she didn't date the clientele. So I kept coming back, every week, buying the same box of cereal I can't even stand to eat. Eventually, she agreed to coffee just to get rid of me. Isla's head snapped toward him, eyes wide. This was definitely not the rehearsal. But Mrs. Duncan ate it up with a spoon. Oh, how romantic. I adore a persistent man. Isla didn't miss a beat, jumping right in. He was relentless, 9:15 every Saturday like clockwork. I finally said yes to see if he was serious or just bored. Wyatt flashed a grin. Turns out I was deadly serious. 2 months of terrible breakfast food was the best investment I ever made. They bounced off each other effortlessly, sounding like seasoned partners rather than improvisers making it up on the fly. Mrs. Duncan drifted off to ambush another guest, leaving them stifling giggles, hands still locked. The VP, Mr. Brennan, marched over 20 minutes later. Khakis, polo corporate logo, all business. He shook Wyatt's hand, asking about his trade. When Wyatt mentioned the auto shop, Brennan gave a nod of respect. Solid, honest work, rare to find young folks who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. You picked a winner, Ela. The itinerary forced them into the couple's games. Tied together at the ankle with a bandana, they stumbled through the 3-legged race, Isla nearly tripping them twice. Miraculously, they actually took first place. As they crossed the finish line, they collapsed into a hug that lingered a few seconds past friendly. The embrace lingered long enough for Wyatt to catch the scent of her shampoo and feel the frantic thudding of her heart against his ribs. From the edge of the grass, Nora's voice pierced the air. That's my daddy. That's my Ela. They're the best. The declaration sparked a wave of enthusiastic applause and cheers from the surrounding crowd of employees. In that fleeting heartbeat, the charade dissolved for Wyatt. The warmth, the cheers, it all felt terrifyingly genuine. Next was the couple's trivia challenge, a disaster waiting to happen for two people who had met only 24 hours ago. Yet against all logic, they were nailing every single answer. Partner's ultimate comfort food. Within a split second, they both shouted, "Pizza!" Then the host dropped a heavy one. "What is your partner's deepest fear?" Without missing a beat, Wyatt answered, "Failing the people she cares about. Not being enough." Isla's eyes glazed over with sudden tears. How could a total stranger read her soul so effortlessly? They swept the game. Mrs. Duncan grabbed the microphone, her voice booming across the park. "Would you look at these lovebirds perfectly in sync? Take notes, folks, this is what true romance looks like." Isla felt a sharp knot of guilt tighten in her gut. Everyone was cooing over a fairy tale, unaware they were applauding a carefully scripted lie. By 2 in the afternoon, the pressure was suffocating, and Isla murmured an excuse to slip away to the restrooms. Returning a few minutes later, she froze near the refreshments, catching the hushed tones of 2 colleagues. "Did you get a good look at Isla's fiancé? The way he looks at her. It's intense. I'm actually jealous." One sighed. The other laughed. "Tell me about it. A rugged mechanic who worships the ground she walks on. She hit the absolute jackpot." Isla ducked behind a pillar, nausea rising in her throat because the fantasy was sickeningly false. He didn't worship her. He was just a decent guy helping a desperate woman out of a jam. Tomorrow, they would retreat to their separate lives, and the fantasy would evaporate. Throughout the day, Nora refused to let go of Isla's hand, dragging her around to meet every other child. "This is my daddy's fiancée, Isla. She's gonna be my new mom. Isn't she pretty?" A little boy nearby scowled. "You're lucky. My stepmom is mean." Nora's face grew serious. "Isla isn't mean. She's the best, and she already loves my daddy so much. I can tell. Just look at how she smiles at him." Isla felt like the lowest creature on earth, deceiving an innocent child who only wanted happiness for her father. Around 3 o'clock, Wyatt located Isla hovering near the parking lot perimeter, looking as if she were on the verge of shattering. He approached softly. "Hey, you holding up? We're in the home stretch. You've been perfect out there." Isla shook her head, her voice strained and brittle. "This was a mistake, Wyatt, a massive one. Nora thinks this is real. My coworkers think we're in love. They're good people, Wyatt, and I'm lying to their faces. I feel like absolute trash." Wyatt stepped closer to reassure her. "You're just doing what's necessary to keep your livelihood." She cut him off sharp. "That doesn't make it right. I'm a liar, and worse, I've dragged you down into the mud with me. Before she could spiral further, static crackled over the speakers, followed by Mrs. Duncan's voice summoning everyone to the main pavilion. "Before we close out this wonderful afternoon, I have a few special acknowledgments to make. Isla Chen has been a dedicated part of the Maplewood Fresh Mart family for 6 incredible years. She is one of our hardest workers, and she's about to tie the knot with this wonderful gentleman. Let's hear it for them." Thunderous applause erupted, and Isla wished the earth would simply crack open and devour her. But Mrs. Duncan wasn't finished. "I am absolutely thrilled to announce that corporate has approved my recommendation. Effective immediately, Isla is our new assistant manager. Congratulations, honey. You earned it." The cheering intensified, forcing Isla to paste on a trembling smile and murmur thanks as colleagues swarmed her. Internally, she was hyperventilating. This wasn't just a small bump, it was life-changing. A salary increase, better hours. Real benefits, everything she needed, all built on a fabrication about a fiancé she met 24 hours ago. The festivities finally wound down around 4 o'clock. Wyatt drove them home, the truck silent save for the hum of the engine. In the back, Nora dozed off exhausted from the excitement. The heaviness in the cabin was palpable until Isla broke it. "I can't take that promotion. It's not right. There's no way." Wyatt shot her a baffled glance. "What do you mean? You earned that spot fair and square. Mrs. Duncan said it herself. You've been busting your tail for 6 years. Isla shook her head violently. "I earned it through deceit. They promoted the version of me that's stable, engaged, and has a perfect family." "It's fraud, Wyatt. None of it is real." Wyatt swung the truck into an empty lot, killed the engine, and turned to face her. Before his common sense could intervene, the words tumbled out. "So, make it not a lie." Isla stared at him as if he were speaking Martian. "Excuse me." Wyatt ran a hand through his hair, stunned that he had actually voiced the thought. "Nothing, forget it, I don't know what I'm saying." But Isla wasn't letting him retreat. "No." "What did you mean, make it not a lie? You need to explain that because my head is spinning." Wyatt inhaled deeply, deciding to dive off the cliff. Apparently today was the day for reckless, life-altering decisions. The original deal was simple. I help you for 4 hours, then we go back to being strangers. But, Isla, honestly, I haven't had that much fun in 3 solid years. And watching Nora light up like that, it's been ages since she was that happy about anything. I can't even recall the last time. When you nailed that trivia question about my favorite color, laughed at my terrible jokes, and held Nora's hand like she belonged to you, something shifted. The act disappeared. It didn't feel like a performance anymore. It felt like real life. Isla's eyes went wide, but Wyatt couldn't stop now. He was in too deep. Look, I'm not saying we should elope tomorrow morning. That would be insanity. We barely know each other, but what if we just didn't stop? What if we tried dating for real? Just let it evolve naturally. I haven't felt this way about anyone since Claire, and frankly, that scares the hell out of me. But the thought of walking away and never seeing you again, that scares me a whole lot more. Isla looked like the wind had been knocked out of her. Wyatt, you don't owe me a thing. You've already done more than I had any right to ask. Wyatt reached across the gap, covering her hand with his. This isn't about debt. It's about the fact that you walked into my garage yesterday with the most insane request I've ever heard. And somehow in just 24 hours you woke up a part of me I thought was dead and buried. Maybe I'm totally off base here. Maybe you think I've lost it. But I had to tell you. Silence filled the truck cab, heavy and electric, as they locked eyes. Suddenly, a small voice piped up from the back seat. Nora had been listening to every word. Oh my gosh, Dad, just kiss her already. This is taking forever, and I'm starving back here. The two adults jumped, the tension breaking into startled laughter. Wyatt turned back to Isla, his voice dropping to a murmur. Can I kiss you, no audience this time? Just because I want to. Isla nodded, breathless. Yes, please. He leaned over the console, pressing his lips to hers, soft, sweet, and undeniably real. Finally, Nora groaned. Okay, can we get pizza now? Serious hunger situation here. They pulled apart, dissolving into giggles. Come Monday, Isla entered the office, walking on clouds. She'd spent all of Sunday with Wyatt and Nora, and everything about it felt effortless and perfect. The high crashed instantly when Mrs. Duncan summoned her, looking grim. Isla's stomach plummeted. Honey, her boss started, we need to discuss the promotion. Corporate wants to run a spotlight feature on our new assistant manager for the newsletter. You know, a Meet the Team profile. Since I met your fiancé at Family Day, I suggested they get a quote from him about how proud he is. I assumed that would be fine. Isla went pale. Corporate was going to interrogate Wyatt about a fake engagement. If he slipped up, she was done, fired, and publicly humiliated. And if he lied, they were just burying themselves in a deception they could never escape. At lunch, she bolted to Freeman's Auto Repair. She found Wyatt blissfully working under a Toyota, clueless that their house of cards was about to collapse. She started babbling before he even slid out on the creeper. Corporate is doing a profile. They're going to call you for a quote about our 8-month engagement. If you tell them we met 4 days ago, I'm fired. She gasped for air, trembling. I don't know what to do. Wyatt stood wiping grease onto his coveralls. He immediately grabbed at her hands, his voice an anchor in her storm. Hey, breathe. When is the call happening? Isla shook her head wildly. Any time this week. It's standard procedure. But Wyatt, we have to choose. Do we double down on the lie, or do we confess and face the music? Wyatt studied her face, his expression softening. What do you want, Isla? It's your career, your life. I've got your back either way, but you have to make the call. Tears pricked her eyes. No one ever gave her the choice. They just gave orders. She inhaled shakily. I want the truth. I can't build something real with you on a foundation of lies. Even if I lose the promotion, I have to come clean. Wyatt beamed, looking at her with pure pride. Then we do it together. We'll see Mrs. Duncan first thing tomorrow, tell her everything, and figure out the fallout as a team. Isla flung her arms around his neck right there in the garage, whispering, Thank you for not thinking I've lost my mind. Wyatt wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight. Oh, I definitely think you've lost your mind, he murmured. But I like it. Honestly, crazy is really working for me right now. Later that evening, Isla was at Wyatt's place helping Nora with her homework when the little girl looked up from her spelling list and asked, So, are you guys still pretend married, or are we doing the real thing now? It was the kind of blunt, 7-year-old honesty that slices right through adult nonsense. Wyatt rubbed the back of his neck, trying to find the words. It's complicated, sweetheart. But Nora wasn't buying it. No, it's not. You like Isla, right? And Isla, you like my dad. So just be together because you want to, not because of some silly job thing. That's what Dad always says. And Mom used to tell me, do things because they make your soul happy, not because you think you have to. Wyatt felt the air leave his lungs. That was Claire. That was exactly something Claire used to say. Isla's eyes welled with tears as she reached across the homework-scattered table to squeeze Wyatt's hand. Nora just went back to her spelling, oblivious to the fact that she'd just dropped profound wisdom on two adults who clearly needed a second grader to sort out their lives. By Tuesday morning, the resolve had set in. Isla and Wyatt walked into Mrs. Duncan's office side by side. Isla didn't hold back, she confessed everything. How they had met only 4 days prior. She admitted the family day event was a total sham, apologized for the deception, and offered her resignation if that was what needed to happen. She was rambling words tumbling out in a nervous rush before she lost her nerve, so she completely missed the fact that Mrs. Duncan was smiling. When Isla finally ran out of breath, Mrs. Duncan leaned back in her chair and dropped 4 words that made the room freeze. "Honey, I already knew." Isla's jaw practically hit the floor. What?" Mrs. Duncan chuckled softly. "You think I've been managing people for 30 years and I can't spot it when 2 strangers just met? You hesitated on his favorite color during the trivia. Real fiancés don't have to think about that stuff. But let me tell you what I did see. I saw a decent man take an entire day off work to help someone he barely knew. And I watched the 2 of you actually fall in love in real time right there over the potato salad." Mrs. Duncan opened a drawer and slid a paper across the desk. It was Isla's promotion approval, signed, sealed, and dated a full week before the family day event. "You got this position because you earned it," she said firmly. 6 years of busting your tail, perfect attendance, and training every single new hire we brought on. The engagement story had exactly 0 to do with it. I just used your little fairy tale as leverage to push corporate to move faster on the paperwork." Isla started crying right there in the office, and Mrs. Duncan offered her a tissue. "So here is my real question. Are you 2 actually dating now? For real?" Wyatt and Isla locked eyes and answered in perfect unison, "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Duncan clapped her hands together. "Good. Then make it official eventually and there's no lie to worry about. Now get out of my office. Some of us have actual work to do." Moments later in the parking lot, Isla was still trying to process the encounter when Wyatt turned to her. "I have a completely insane idea." Isla let out a wet laugh. "Crazier than fake dating." Wyatt took both of her hands in his. "Way crazier. Marry me. I mean, for real. Eventually. I know we've only known each other 5 days, and this is absolutely bonkers, but I haven't stopped thinking about you since you walked into my shop. Plus, Nora is already planning her dress for the wedding. And when Mrs. Duncan asked if we were really together, saying yes felt like the most honest thing I've said in years." Isla was smiling through her tears. "Wyatt Freeman, are you seriously proposing to me in a supermarket parking lot after knowing me less than a week?" Wyatt grinned. "I'm not proposing. I'm saying let's date for real. Let's see where this goes. But I'm also saying I already know where it's going because you're it for me." Isla pulled him down by his lapels and kissed him right there in front of the morning rush of shoppers. "Ask me again in a few months," she whispered, "when we've actually done this properly." "Deal," Wyatt said, "but I'm already picking out a ring." Isla laughed. "That is extremely presumptuous." "That," Wyatt replied, "is called being confident." They stood there grinning at each other like complete idiots until Isla reluctantly had to go start her shift. 5 months flew by, faster than either of them expected, and they did it right, they dated for real. There were family dinners with Nora, meeting the parents, and all the beautiful mundane chaos of a real relationship. Around month 4, Nora started calling her Isla Mom, a middle ground she invented herself, and nobody corrected her because it just felt right. Isla's promotion went through without a hitch, and she was incredible in the role. Wyatt's business kept growing, and somewhere around February, during a random moment watching Nora's school play, Wyatt whispered, "I love you." Isla said it back instantly. April 9th rolled around exactly 5 months after the family day event, and Wyatt told Isla to meet him at the Maplewood Fresh Mart parking lot. When she pulled in, he was standing by his truck looking more nervous than she had ever seen him. She pulled up to find him hovering by the pickup looking like he was about to jump out of his own skin. "What brings us back here?" Isla wondered aloud. Wyatt squeezed her fingers tight. "Because this concrete patch is where the lies stopped and our real life began. It had to be here." Without another word, he dropped to one knee on the rough pavement and retrieved a velvet ring box. 5 months back, you needed a fake boyfriend for 4 hours. I was terrible at the role, mostly because I wasn't acting. I was falling for you from the start. Isla Chen, let's make this permanent. will you be my wife? Give me the rest of my days to prove that gambling on a stranger with a wild favor was your smartest move ever. Isla was already choking back tears, head bobbing up and down. Yes, God, yes. Suddenly, Nora burst out from behind a sedan hoisting a handmade poster that read, "She said yes, finally getting a mom." About time. Isla swept the little girl up, twirling her around. Nora whispered, "Can I say Mom out loud now, instead of just thinking it?" Isla kissed her cheek through the tears. "Yes, sweetheart. Anytime you want." The parking lot exploded with applause misses. Duncan had secretly gathered the neighbors. 8 months later, they tied the knot at the local hall with Nora serving as the most intense flower girl Vermont had ever seen. The kid even carried a clipboard to keep everyone in line. Standing at the altar, Wyatt choked up. "You begged a stranger for a lifeline. I agreed because I'm used to repairing things. I just didn't expect you to put me back together, too." Isla wiped her eyes. "You stepped up when you owed me nothing, transforming my biggest mess into my greatest blessing." Later on the dance floor, Nora tugged at their sleeves. "Mom, Dad cut the cake already." That single word hit Isla right in the chest. Wyatt pulled his two favorite girls into a huddle, knowing Claire would have adored Isla and realizing his daughter had the right instinct from day one. They marched toward the dessert table as a unit, an accidental family forged from a moment of panic and a leap of faith. It is funny how the most insane requests can unlock the most beautiful futures. Isla was looking for a 4-hour stand-in and ended up with a forever partner. Wyatt agreed to help a random woman and stumbled into the family he desperately needed. A charade meant to save a career became the love story of a lifetime. If you are terrified to reach out or hesitant to answer the call when someone is in a bind, take this as your cue. Take the jump. Ask the favor. Agree to the wild proposal. You never know where 4 hours of make-believe might lead you. Press that subscribe button if you believe the greatest romances begin with the most ridiculous circumstances. Sometimes love finds you the moment you drop the act. Thanks for watching. Never forget the person you are pretending to care for might just be the soulmate you have been searching for all along.